It's completely a political game. 10 minutes after they said that I was under arrest, the FSB came and interrogated me. They didn't ask me anything about fighting police. They asked me where I served in the Marine Corps, what deployments I was on.
At that time, the FSB had arrived because someone had seen on his visa application he'd been a U.S. Marine, and they interrogated him for a couple of hours about his Marine Corps history. And after they left, they charged him with assaulting police officers. Before that, he was not guarded. He was not handcuffed. He was sitting in the lobby with women and children. And after the FSB came, he was public enemy number one. And then after his first appeal was denied, he was then shipped off on a prison train to the Republic of Mordovia, to what we call a gulag. It's an old Stalin prison in the forest where the temperatures are right now, I think, 10 and 20 below zero. He's refusing to work in a labor camp, so they've placed him in solitary confinement most of the last 7 months. Half of that time, he was in a very small room alone with a hole in the floor for a toilet, a water faucet that has untreated water, a bed that folds down off the wall with chains and a metal frame.
And Trevor had written some complaints about his living conditions and his exposure to TB, and he was going to give them to his attorney, but for whatever reason, this time they didn't let him, they confiscated all his paperwork and wouldn't let him give them to the attorney, which they have not done before. And the attorney said he'd never seen that before. So that was very unusual, and we're just kind of concerned about that.
Dragging me along, even though I've got a medical condition that prohibits this. You can see the treatment.
You know, I'd say he wasn't really singled out because there is another former Marine that was arrested 8 months before our son and charged as being a spy, which is completely bogus. But we believe it has to do with them being Marines. And apparently the Russian government doesn't like United States Marines. But I would advise all Americans not to go there, especially former military personnel.
Two U.S. citizens, Paul Whelan and Trevor Reed, who were tourists in Russia, were arrested, convicted without credible evidence, and we again ask Russia to do the right thing and let them come home.
So we did tell him that we didn't think that it was a bad deal to trade those two guys. And I know a lot of people think that there are terrorists or whatever. And as his parents, obviously, I would say it's a good trade, do it. And then we also emphasize that if they're going to make this trade and eventually it gets done, then why wait? Just go ahead and do it now. And you asked what their answer was to us, and they didn't give us an answer like, okay, yes, they just told us that they're considering everything.
We're concerned, you know, if war breaks out in Ukraine, that whatever channels might be used right now to discuss his release or some sort of exchange of prisoners, that might, you know, collapse. And then there's also if we're at odds with Russia with giant sanctions and things of that nature, you know, they could tack on more false charges, you know, against Trevor and Paul, which is pretty much standard for the FSB. And, you know, Trevor could be there forever. He could die there in prison.